All right, so get this. Today we're going to be diving deep into meditation, like really deep. We're talking about how it can change your brain, your body, everything. We're pulling some amazing insights from the Huberman Lab podcast. You know, the one with Andrew Huberman. He's like this neuroscientist who breaks down complex science stuff in a way that, like, anyone can understand.
Yeah, Huberman's awesome. What I really dig about him is that he's not just like some talking head. He's been meditating for over 30 years, man.
Yeah.
He even uses apps like Headspace, just like us regular folks. Gives him a real, credible vibe.
Totally. And I think sometimes when we think about meditation, we picture this, like super serious person sitting in total silence. But Huberman's all about showing how there are so many different ways to do it,
Yeah.
It's not just about sitting still.
Right, you got walking meditations, lying down meditations, even some crazy techniques that might help you sleep less but still function like a boss.
Okay, now that's something I need to hear more about. So let's get into the science behind all this. Huberman talks about how meditation can literally change the way your brain works, like how different parts of your brain talk to each other.
Yeah, like he talks about this area called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is all about planning and making decisions. And then there's the anterior cingulate cortex, which is like the control center for emotions and attention. And meditation can turn these areas up or down depending on what type you're doing.
So it's not just about feeling calmer in the moment. We're talking actual long-lasting changes in the brain. Pretty wild, right?
Totally. And the cool thing is, as you get better at meditating, even short sessions can have a big impact. So even if you can only squeeze in 5 or 10 minutes a day, you're still getting benefits.
Music to my ears. Speaking of busy minds, Huberman mentioned this study called "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." Basically, the more our minds wander, the less happy we are. Makes you think, right?
For sure. Like when your mind's racing with a million to-dos and you can't just chill out, it's exhausting. And that's where mindfulness comes in, training your mind to be more present so you can escape that cycle of worry and overthinking.
So it's not about emptying your mind completely, but more like gaining control over where your attention goes.
Exactly. It's like building mental muscle to direct your focus where you want it to go.
Okay, so we've talked about the brain stuff, but let's dive into the different types of meditation, because I know it's not just about sitting cross-legged on a cushion. What other options are out there?
Oh, man, there are tons. You got your classic sitting meditation, of course, but there's also walking meditation, where you focus on how your feet feel with each step. Then there's lying down meditation, which can be super helpful for relaxing and getting better sleep. And don't forget about guided visualizations, where you use your imagination to create calming images or scenarios.
It's like a whole meditation toolkit. And what I like is that Huberman doesn't just list these techniques. He actually connects them to specific outcomes. Like if you're dealing with anxiety, he might suggest outward-focused meditation, where you shift your attention away from all the worries inside and more towards the world around you.
Yeah, it's about understanding how your mind naturally works and then picking practices that complement that. Like if you're someone who's really tuned into their body sensations, you might find body scan meditation really helpful.
And on the other hand, if you're more aware of what's happening around you, then something like walking meditation or focusing on sounds might be more your style.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you, making meditation your own.
One thing that totally caught my attention was Huberman's discussion of breath work. He talked about how techniques like box breathing, where you inhale, hold, exhale, hold for a certain count, can actually shift your whole mental and physical state just by impacting your nervous system.
Breath work is seriously powerful stuff. Our breath is directly connected to our nervous system, the one that controls our heart rate, digestion, stress response, all that. And by changing how we breathe, we can hack into this system and kind of control our inner state.
So if I'm feeling stressed, I can do box breathing to calm my nerves down.
Exactly. It's like this. When we're stressed, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in. It's the fight or flight response, right? Our heart rate goes up, our breathing gets all messed up, we tense up. But when we do slow, deep breathing, we activate the opposite system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about chilling out and relaxing.
So it's we have this off switch for our stress response just by breathing.
Pretty much. And the best part, breath work is something anyone can do, anywhere, anytime, no special equipment, no training, just you, your breath, and a few minutes of focus.
Mind blown. Okay, now I'm going to ask about something Huberman discussed that I honestly had to look up the definition for. Interoception and dissociation, what are those exactly?
Sure. So interoception is basically your ability to sense what's going on inside your body. your heartbeat, your breathing, digestion, all those subtle feelings. Dissociation, on the other hand, is when you feel disconnected from your body and your surroundings.
So interoception is being tuned into your body, and dissociation is being, like, spaced out from it.
Yep. And the interesting thing is, Huberman says a healthy state is somewhere in the middle. You want to be aware of what's happening inside without being overwhelmed by it.
So it's not about shutting down emotions or disconnecting from your body completely. It's more about being mindful of those internal experiences without letting them, like, take over.
Precisely. And meditation can help you find that balance. Some practices, like body scan meditation, can make you more aware of your body, while others can help shift your focus away from any overwhelming sensations.
So if someone's struggling with anxiety where their body's sending all these intense signals, meditation can help them regulate those feelings and find a sense of calm.
Definitely. And the opposite is true too. If someone's feeling disconnected from their body, meditation can help them gently reconnect with those physical sensations.
Okay, last thing I got to ask about, the whole third eye thing. You know, it's a popular idea, but Huberman tackles it from a scientific angle. What's the real deal?
So there's this gland in our brain called the pineal gland, and it's often associated with the third eye concept. Now, this gland does have a role in regulating our sleep-wake cycles because it produces melatonin, but like the idea of it being some mystical portal to higher consciousness, that's not exactly backed by science.
So no magical third eye.
Not quite. The third eye in meditation is more of a metaphor. You know, it's about developing this focused, clear mind that can see the world without all the usual mental clutter. It's not about activating some magical gland, but about training our minds to see things as they truly are.
Now, we've covered meditation, breath work, but what about hypnosis? Is it a completely separate thing or are there overlaps?
That's a really good question. Huberman actually interviewed this hypnosis expert, Dr. David Spiegel, and they talked about how while hypnosis and meditation are distinct, they share some common ground.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Well, Dr. Spiegel describes hypnosis as more targeted, you know. It's often used for things like pain management or breaking bad habits. It's about using focused attention and suggestion to change how you perceive things, your thoughts, and even your behavior.
So if you're dealing with something specific, like wanting to quit smoking or dealing with chronic pain, hypnosis might be a more direct approach.
Right. Whereas meditation, like we've been talking about, is more about overall well-being. It's about understanding yourself better, your mind, and learning how to handle life's curveballs with more peace and clarity.
But they both involve focusing your attention and, like, tapping into different states of consciousness.
Totally. And that's where things get a bit blurry. Dr. Spiegel even brought up this cool concept called space-time bridging, or STB.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's space-time bridging?
Imagine combining the focus of meditation with the targeted approach of hypnosis. That's basically STB. It's like a hybrid technique where you shift your awareness between your inner world and the outside world, messing with your perception of time and space. We'll dig deeper into STB and how it relates to time perception later on, but for now, let's stick with the basics of meditation.
All right, we've covered so much already. The science behind meditation, different types, the power of breath work, even the connection with hypnosis. But before we move on, I want to make sure our listener understands one key thing.
What's that?
The idea that meditation is about having a completely blank mind. That can be pretty intimidating for beginners.
You're so right. And Huberman emphasizes this over and over. Meditation isn't about silencing your mind completely. Thoughts are going to pop up. It's totally natural.
So it's not about getting rid of thoughts, but more like observing them without getting caught up in them.
Exactly. It's like watching clouds drift by. You see them, but you don't grab onto them.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So instead of getting frustrated when thoughts come up during meditation, you should just acknowledge them and let them pass without judging them.
You got it. Like training a puppy. You wouldn't punish it for barking, right? You just gently redirect its attention. And over time, with patience, that puppy, or in this case your mind, will learn to settle down and focus.
I love that analogy. It makes meditation seem way less intimidating and more approachable.
And that's exactly what we want, right? To make meditation something anyone can use to feel better, think clearer, and find some peace of mind. Welcome back.
You know, last time we really dug into how meditation can, like, rewire your brain, and we talked about all those different techniques. Like, it's not just sitting on a cushion, right?
Right. It's a whole world of meditation out there. And we even got into breath work and how it can impact your nervous system.
Yeah. You know, it's pretty amazing how something as simple as breathing can completely change how you feel both mentally and physically. Totally. And I remember Huberman was saying how different breathing patterns can shift your whole mood. He even suggested things like box breathing for people who maybe haven't found success with traditional meditation because it gives them something concrete to focus on.
That's it. But he doesn't just stop at the technique. He explains the science behind it, like how it affects our autonomic nervous system, which controls all these automatic functions in our body.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does changing my breathing actually change what's happening in my nervous system?
So think about your autonomic nervous system as having two modes. Okay, you've got the sympathetic nervous system, which is like your fight or flight response, when you're stressed out. And then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is all about rest and digest, calming things down.
So when I'm like totally freaking out, my sympathetic nervous system is going haywire?
Exactly. Your heart's racing, your breathing gets all fast and shallow. You might even feel tense or shaky. But here's where breathwork comes in. Techniques like box breathing can actually switch you over to that parasympathetic mode. Bring on the relaxation and calm.
Wow, so it's like we can literally reprogram our nervous system just by changing how we breathe.
Pretty much. And that's why breathwork is so powerful for managing stress, anxiety, you name it. Even helps with sleep. It's like having this control panel for your inner state.
Okay, you mentioned advanced meditation techniques earlier, and I'm curious, what about things like NSDR and Yoga Nidra? They sound kind of intense.
Yeah, they take you a little deeper, but they're surprisingly easy to do. Take NSDR, for example. It stands for non-sleep deep rest. And Huberman says it's a way to feel more refreshed and alert even if you haven't slept that well.
Wait, so it's like a power nap, but you don't actually fall asleep?
It's not exactly a nap, but it does get you super relaxed. Think of it like consciously guiding yourself toward that peaceful state of early sleep, but you stay aware the whole time.
Okay, so you're not knocked out, but your mind and body are still getting some serious downtime. I can see how that would be a game changer if you can't squeeze a nap into your day.
Exactly. And then there's Yoga Nidra, which also aims for deep relaxation, but it often uses guided visualizations and positive affirmations to kind of rewire your subconscious mind.
So it's like a mix of meditation and hypnosis, tapping into that deeper level of awareness.
Yeah, there are definitely some similarities, and like NSDR, Yoga Nidra can be really helpful for stress, sleep, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It's like unlocking these secret levels of relaxation and mental clarity.
Now, with all these different techniques, is there one that's considered like the best for beginners? If someone's just starting out, what would you recommend they try first?
It's tough to pick just one, because everyone's different, but Huron does talk about this one technique that's been shown to be really effective. It's a 13-minute daily meditation protocol developed by this researcher, Dr. Wendy Suzuki.
Okay, 13 minutes. That's totally doable. What makes this one so special?
Well, Dr. Suzuki found that doing this specific protocol for just 8 weeks can lead to major improvements in attention, memory, mood, even emotional regulation.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. What exactly does it involve?
It's a cool combo of focused attention, open monitoring, and loving kindness meditation. It's like a little bit of everything, and it works on both the mind and body.
I'm definitely going to check that one out. Now, before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, the whole idea that meditation is about having a blank mind. Huberman really wants to clear that up, right?
He does, and it's super important for people to understand that, meditation isn't about completely silencing your thoughts. It's more about changing how you relate to them. It's realizing that thoughts are just thoughts that come and go, like, waves in the ocean.
So it's not about fighting the waves, it's more like learning to surf them.
Exactly. Instead of getting swept away by every thought and feeling, you learn to observe them without getting all tangled up in them. It's about finding that inner peace that doesn't depend on what's happening around you.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective, and it makes meditation seem way less scary.
For sure, it's about cultivating that calmness within no matter what's going on outside.
Love that. So what are some of the benefits people experience from meditating consistently? Is it just about stress reduction, or are there even deeper rewards?
Well, Huberman talks about how meditation can make you more resilient. You bounce back from challenges more easily. He also mentions improvements in focus, concentration, creativity, even increased compassion and empathy.
Wow, that's amazing. It's starting to sound like meditation isn't just some trendy thing. It's like a fundamental skill for living a better life.
That's a great way to put it, and I think that's really what Huberman is getting at. Meditation isn't just about feeling good in the moment. It's about connecting with yourself and the world around you on a deeper level, tapping into your potential and living a life that's true to you.
I'm feeling super inspired to make meditation a regular part of my life after this deep dive. But before we move on to the final part of our exploration, any last thoughts for our listener about what we've learned so far?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that meditation can truly change your life in so many ways, but it's not magic. It takes effort, consistency, and, a willingness to stick with it. Be patient with yourself, celebrate the small wins, and trust the process.
Welcome back to our deep dive on meditation. Last time, things got pretty wild when we were talking about breath work and advanced techniques like NSDR and yoga Nidra.
I know, right? It's amazing how much there is to discover with meditation. The more we explore, the more fascinating it gets.
Totally. One of the most mind-blowing things Huberman talked about was how meditation can actually change how we experience time. I was like, hold up. Time can feel different.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but the science behind it is actually really cool. Remember that study, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind? Well, it turns out our experience of time is directly linked to where our attention is.
So are you saying if I'm super focused on something, time might feel like it's going slower?
Exactly. When we narrow our focus, our brains tend to break time down into smaller pieces. It's like watching a movie in slow motion, we notice more details and time seems to stretch out. But when our attention is all over the place, time just flies by.
That explains so much, like why time seems to disappear when I'm on social media, but when I'm stuck in a boring meeting, it feels like it takes forever.
Exactly. And this is where meditation comes in. Techniques like that space-time bridging or STB we talked about can help us control our perception of time by shifting our focus between what's going on inside us and what's happening around us.
I still can't get over that STB technique. It's wild to think we can change how we experience something as fundamental as time just by shifting our attention.
It really shows you the power of the mind, right? And it's not just about time. Huberman also explores how meditation can unlock these deeper states of consciousness.
Okay, now we're getting into some deep stuff. What exactly does he mean by deeper states of consciousness? It sounds kind of mystical.
Huberman doesn't shy away from the spiritual side of meditation. He talks about how certain practices can lead to these really profound experiences of connection, transcendence, even feeling like you're one with everything. Those experiences that people describe as mystical.
That sounds intense. Is there any scientific evidence to back that up?
Well, it's an area that scientists are still actively studying. We're just starting to understand these altered states of consciousness, but there's a growing interest in studying things like meditation and even psychedelics to figure out how they affect the brain and our conscious experience.
So it's not just a bunch of new agey stuff. There's real science behind it.
Totally. And Huberman always encourages listeners to be open-minded but also skeptical. It's about finding that balance, respecting the potential of these practices while still relying on scientific understanding.
Makes sense. So if someone's curious about exploring these deeper states of consciousness, where should they even begin?
Huberman suggests starting with practices like yoga nidra, certain types of breath work, or even more advanced mindfulness techniques. But he's really clear about having a solid foundation in basic meditation before trying those more advanced things.
So don't jump into the deep end right away. Build up those meditation muscles first.
Exactly. It's like learning any new skill. You wouldn't try to run a marathon without learning to walk and jog first.
Great analogy. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Huberman Lab podcast, what are the key things our listeners should take away?
I think the biggest takeaway is that meditation is seriously powerful. It can change your mental, emotional, even your physical health. It's not just about relaxing. It's about training your mind, improving your well-being, and maybe even exploring those deeper states of consciousness.
And it's not one size fits all, right? There's so many different ways to meditate, and the key is finding what works for you.
Exactly. It's about honoring what you need and creating a practice that aligns with your goals.
And lastly, I think it's important to remember that meditation is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, and there will be ups and downs.
Totally. Be patient, enjoy the process, and see where it takes you. You never know what incredible things you might discover along the way.
This has been an awesome deep dive into the world of meditation. I feel like I've learned so much about the science, the different techniques, and all the potential benefits.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. And remember, if you're feeling inspired to start meditating, there are so many resources out there. Apps like Headspace and Calm offer guided meditations, and you can find tons of free content on YouTube. Don't forget about local meditation groups and classes in your community, too.
Yeah, there's a whole world of meditation waiting to be discovered, and there's no better time to start than right now. Take a deep breath, get comfy, and embark on your own journey to greater peace, clarity, and well-being.
Until next time, may you find peace and clarity in your practice.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Huberman Lab podcast. We'll catch you next time for another exciting exploration of cutting-edge science and how it affects our lives.